The final idea generating tool we'll talk about is the flowchart. You've probably noticed already that my artistic skills are not great. I claim to have a PhD in stick figures. That said, I hope you'll be able to follow the illustrations. So, flowcharts, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of different symbols for flowcharts. I'm just going to cover the very basic symbols. So, the first symbol that a flowchart uses is called a terminator, and it's for start and stop. That tells you where the process begins. So even if we start in the middle of a process, that tells us the point at which we're going to begin reviewing that process. And then something happens, and so we have a rectangle, and that's an activity. And then maybe something else happens, and that might be a rectangle as well. At some point, we will come across a decision. So that's a diamond. And it's typically an either or yes or no. So you might be familiar with the medical diagnostic charts that sometimes you can look up. I have a stuffy nose, and then you walk through, do you have this, do you have this, and if you say yes, then you go over here. If no, you go someplace else. So that's a decision, and it will branch us off in one direction or another depending on the decision we make. All throughout this process there are directions, and so this direction arrow tells us the direction we are traveling so that we don't back up the wrong way and end up with the wrong result. And then the final one we'll talk about is the connector. And a connector is important because we'll run out of room on our page and we will need to connect it someplace else. So let's say we've taken the process as far as we can go on that page, then I might say connector 1, and then the trick to it will be I need to find that connector 1 on another page and begin that process from there. So it really just, it's a kind of a timeout. Let's find where it begins again, and we go off to another page. Sometimes if you want to come back, and once you have everything documented, if you want to come back and be a little bit clever, you can come back and do a superscript. So let's say it's connector 1, and this 3 would be the page number. That will help navigation a bit. Some people won't do that. In fact, most won't. But those are the basic symbols. Now you'll notice in your book what's called a swim lane flowchart. And the swim lane flowchart divides, it looks like the swim lanes in an Olympic-sized pool, and each area that's impacted by that process is listed in each one of those lanes. So you might have warehouse, customer service, whatever. And so then you walk your process through, and the process will kind of wind its way through who has that step of the process. That's a nice way to do it because everyone sees where their responsibility is in that flowchart, and we don't have to kind of guess our way through it. So a swim lane flowchart can actually be very helpful as well. So those are the main tools. Just to review, we brainstorm in a structured way, or we can use nominal group to generate ideas. If we want to categorize those ideas, we can use a fishbone or an infinity diagram. And if we're looking at a process that we need to map out, a flowchart is a good place to start to see what's duplicated or where it's breaking down.